They say rock bottom is the solid foundation on which you rebuild your life. But when Ryan Mitchell walked out of the law offices of Sullivan, Pierce and Moore that Tuesday morning, he didn't feel a foundation beneath his feet.
Divorce? You can't be serious.
It's over. Sign it.
Whole.
I can't
The
believe
November
this.
rain had turned Chicago's streets into mirrors, reflecting a gray sky that matched the hollow ache spreading through his chest. 10 years of marriage reduced to signatures on paper. 10 years of late-night shifts at the factory of designing logistics networks on napkins, while his wife slept of believing that love meant sacrifice without keeping score. All of it gone. The conference room had smelled like expensive leather and old money. Nicole Grant sat across the mahogany table, her Ralph Lauren suit crisp and spotless, the Hamilton Jazzmaster watch on her wrist catching the light. Ryan had bought her that watch 2 years ago, scraping together savings from overtime shifts, presenting it to her on their 8th anniversary. She'd smiled, then kissed him, told him he shouldn't have spent so much. Now she checked it with the casual indifference of someone checking the time before an inconvenient meeting. Patricia Foster, the lawyer, had a voice like ice water. Her words came out clipped and professional, each syllable a small cut. The prenuptial agreement you signed 10 years ago, combined with the recent restructuring of assets into the Delaware holding companies, leaves you with the settlement as discussed. Ryan had stared at his hands while she spoke. They were rough, calloused from years of working with machinery stained with grease that never quite washed out. These were the hands that had built Velocity Flow's distribution model, that had drawn the hub and spoke network on coffee-stained napkins at 3 in the morning. These hands had created something worth $400 million, and they would leave this room with nothing. Nicole's voice cut through his thoughts, sharp and final. The house is being liquidated to cover the initial costs for the merger with Apex Industries. Ryan looked up at that hope flickering for just a moment. The merger Nicole had been obsessing over for months, the deal that would make her company a giant, the reason she'd been working 16-hour days and coming home smelling like someone else's cologne. His voice came out smaller than he intended. The house. Sophie's piano. Your mother left it to her before she died. That's the only thing I'm asking for. Nicole's expression didn't change. The piano was donated to Goodwill yesterday morning. Tyler wanted the space for a home gym. The name hit Ryan like a physical blow, stealing the air from his lungs. Tyler Brooks, Nicole's 26-year-old chief of staff, the young man with the expensive haircut and the easy smile who'd joined them for Christmas dinner last year. Ryan had liked him, thought he was ambitious but harmless, a kid trying to make his way in the corporate world. The realization crashed over him in waves. How long? His voice barely made it past his throat. How long has it been, Tyler? Nicole stood smoothing invisible wrinkles from her skirt. Does it matter now? She wasn't asking. Ryan, you're a good man. You really are. But I need someone who understands ambition, who sees the bigger picture. Tyler gets the business world. You understand engines and conveyor belts. She picked up her leather portfolio, tucked it under her arm with practiced ease. I've put $5,000 in your personal account. That should cover first month's rent in Aurora and give you time to find work. You're resourceful. You survived before me. You'll survive after. The check sat on the table between them, a small rectangle of paper that felt like hush money for a decade of his life. Ryan looked at it, at the careful zeros written in Nicole's precise handwriting, and something hardened in his chest. Keep it. The words came out steady, surprising him. Nicole's eyebrows rose, the first genuine reaction she'd shown all morning. Don't be proud, Ryan. You need that money. But he was already standing, already reaching for his worn jacket. I don't need money from the woman who just donated my daughter's only inheritance like it was garage sale junk. The walk to the elevator felt like miles. Behind him, Nicole's heels clicked once against the marble floor, then stopped. She didn't call after him. She didn't apologize. The elevator doors closed on her silhouette, already turning back toward the conference room, already moving on to whatever came next in her carefully planned day. Ryan rode down 43 floors in silence, watching the numbers descend, each one taking him further from the life he'd known. The rain hit him the moment he stepped outside. November in Chicago carried a particular kind of cold, the kind that seeped through clothes and settled in bones. Ryan had one duffel bag waiting with the building's doorman, everything he owned that Nicole had allowed him to keep. 3 changes of clothes, his old MIT engineering jacket that no longer fit quite right, a photo album from before the marriage, and the battered notebook where he'd sketched his first logistics designs. The doorman handed it over without meeting his eyes, the way people avoid looking at car accidents. His phone buzzed as he shouldered the bag. Security codes to the house changed at 9 this morning. Your belongings are with the doorman. Please collect by 5 p.m. or they will be removed to the curb. Sophie is with my parents per the custody arrangement. You have her this weekend, Saturday, 9 a.m. to Sunday, 6 p.m. The custody arrangement, joint custody, the lawyer had called it, though nothing about it felt joint. Nicole got their daughter 5 days a week, got to tuck her in at night, help with homework, be there for the small moments that made up a childhood. Ryan got weekends, got to be the fun dad, the one who showed up with treats and planned activities, never quite part of Sophie's daily life. 8 years old, smart as a whip, with her grandmother's talent for piano. The grandmother she'd never meet because cancer had taken Ryan's mother 3 years ago, and the piano had been her dying gift to her granddaughter. Now it was sitting in some Goodwill warehouse waiting to be sold to strangers. Ryan stood on Michigan Avenue, rain soaking through his jacket, and pulled out his phone to call David. David Park, his old roommate from the 2 years he'd spent at MIT before dropping out to support Nicole's startup dreams. David had moved to Milwaukee, worked as a project manager for a construction firm, always told Ryan there was a couch available if he needed it. The phone rang 4 times before going to voicemail. Ryan tried to remember David's address, pulling up their last text conversation from 3 months ago. Something about Maple Street, a new apartment in a renovated building. He flagged down a cab, the yellow paint bright against the gray afternoon. Where to? The driver's voice carried the musical lilt of West Africa, patient and kind. Maple Street, Milwaukee. Ryan settled into the back seat, the vinyl squeaking under his wet jeans. His phone died as he tried to pull up the exact address, the screen going black without warning. Of course. He hadn't charged it the night before, had been too busy lying awake staring at the ceiling of the hotel room Nicole's lawyer had booked for him, trying to understand how his life had arrived at this moment. The cab merged into traffic, windshield wipers beating a steady rhythm against the downpour. Ryan watched the city slide past through rain-streaked windows. Chicago gave way to the Milwaukee streets. He knew the familiar neighborhoods where he and Nicole had walked on Sunday mornings in those early years when they were still kids playing at being adults, still believed they were building something together. The cab slowed, pulled to a curb. Maple Street. But something was wrong. This wasn't Milwaukee. The buildings were wrong, too pristine, too expensive. Limestone facades and wrought iron gates lined the street, the kind of architecture that whispered old money and established power. The driver caught his confusion in the rearview mirror. Pemberton Avenue, Gold Coast. Is problem. Ryan's stomach dropped. Maple Street, Milwaukee. I said Maple Street. The driver shrugged, not unkindly. Was hard to hear in rain. This is Pemberton. You want I take you to Milwaukee now? But the meter was already at $30, money Ryan didn't have, and the rain was getting worse. No, this is fine. He paid, watched the cab pull away, leaving him alone on a street that looked nothing like where he was supposed to be. The brownstone in front of him rose 4 stories, dark and imposing. Ivy climbed the stone walls like veins, and the windows were dark, lifeless. Number 1, 428 Pemberton Avenue. Ryan looked down at his phone's black screen, useless and dead. He could walk to find a subway station, drag his soaked duffel bag through the streets until he found somewhere with an outlet and Wi-Fi. Or he could knock on this door, ask to use a phone, call David, and figure out where he'd actually ended up. The decision made itself. He was already climbing the steps, already reaching for the heavy brass knocker shaped like a lion's head. 3 sharp raps echoed in the rain. Silence answered. Ryan waited, water dripping from his hair down his neck, seeping under his collar. He knocked again, harder this time, desperation creeping into the edges of his awareness. If no one answered, he'd have to walk, and he had no idea where the nearest subway was, and the bag was getting heavier with each passing second. The door cracked open, chain still engaged, and a single eye appeared in the gap. "We don't buy solar panels." The voice was female, deep and rough with disuse. "And Girl Scout cookie season ended months ago." Ryan tried to smile, knew it probably looked more like a grimace. "I'm not selling anything. I'm lost. My phone died. I just need to call a cab. Please." The eyes studied him, taking in the soaked MIT jacket, the battered duffel bag, the exhaustion written across his face. The door closed. Ryan's heart sank. Then he heard the chain sliding back, metal scraping against metal, and the door swung open wide. The woman standing in the doorway was tall, with dark hair pulled back in a messy knot. She wore a black turtleneck and gray joggers, barefoot despite the November cold. Her face carried lines that spoke of old grief, the kind that settled in and never quite left. But her eyes were sharp, intelligent, assessing him with the cool calculation of someone used to reading people quickly. "You look like you need more than a phone charger. Come in before you catch pneumonia. I'm Elena." The warmth hit him the moment he stepped inside. The foyer was grand, all marble floors and Persian rugs, a crystal chandelier hanging from a ceiling painted with elaborate plasterwork. Ryan stood dripping on a rug that probably cost more than his car, or what used to be his car, before Nicole sold it to cover her quarterly expenses. "I'm Ryan. I'm so sorry about your floor." Elena closed the door, shutting out the storm with a heavy thud. "Floor's dry. Spirits take longer." She walked past him toward a hallway. "I was making coffee. You look like a double espresso situation." Ryan followed her through rooms that spoke of wealth so old it didn't need to announce itself. The library they entered had floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a fire crackling in a limestone hearth, and enough space to comfortably fit his old apartment twice over. Blueprints covered a massive desk in the corner, held down by coffee mugs and what looked like server equipment. Elena gestured to a leather chair near the fire. "Sit. Dry off. I'll get the coffee and a charger." She disappeared through another door, leaving Ryan alone with the realization that he'd stumbled into a world so far removed from his own it might as well be another planet. The fire's warmth worked its way through his wet clothes, slowly unknotting the tension in his shoulders. Ryan looked around the room, taking in details. The books were organized, but well-used, spines cracked and corners dog-eared. Technical manuals sat next to philosophy texts, mathematics beside poetry. On the wall above the mantel hung a framed magazine cover, and Ryan's breath caught when he recognized it. Forbes from 4 years ago. The headline read, "The Crawford Algorithm: How One Woman Revolutionized Tech Logistics." The photo showed a younger version of Elena, her hair sleek and professional, wearing a sharp suit and the confident smile of someone who'd conquered her field. Elena Crawford, the ghost of Silicon Alley. Ryan had read about her in business school during his brief time at MIT. She'd made her first billion at 25 with predictive routing software that changed how companies handled shipping and distribution. She'd been featured in every major publication, heralded as the next generation of tech innovators. Then 4 years ago, she'd vanished. The rumors varied depending on who you asked. Breakdown, scandal, death. Most people forgot about her after a few months, moving on to the next bright young thing. But Ryan remembered Nicole studying Crawford's case, incorporating elements of her logistics philosophy into Velocity Flow's original business plan. Elena returned carrying 2 mugs and a phone charger. She handed Ryan the coffee first, then plugged his phone into an outlet near the chair. "You'll want sugar. People who've had the kind of day you're having always need sugar." But Ryan shook his head, wrapping his hands around the mug's warmth. "Black is fine. Thank you for letting me in, for the coffee, for everything." Elena settled into the chair across from him, tucking her bare feet under her. "A man shows up at my door in a November storm looking like the world just ended. I get curious. Velocity Flow." The name came out of Elena's mouth with casual precision. "Your wife's company. Except it's not really hers, is it?" Ryan's hands tightened on the mug. "How do you know who I am?" Elena reached for a tablet on the side table, tapped it awake. "I looked you up while you were standing in the foyer, dripping on my rug. Boston Gazette 2019. Profile on promising tech startups." There's a photo of you and Nicole at a networking event. You're in the background holding technical diagrams. She's front and center with investors holding champagne. Ryan closed his eyes, the memory washing over him. That had been their first big break, the event where Nicole had landed their initial seed funding. He'd spent 3 days preparing the presentation boards, making sure every detail was perfect. Nicole had promised they'd celebrate together afterward. Instead, she'd gone to dinner with the investors, told Ryan to go home and start working on the prototype. He'd pulled an all-nighter in their cramped apartment coding the first version of the routing software while Nicole networked at a 5-star restaurant. "Why do you care?" His voice came out rougher than intended. "Because Nicole's merging with Apex Industries next month." Elena's tone hardened, losing its warmth. "And Apex is run by Marcus Webb, the man who stole my life's work." Ryan looked up at that meeting her eyes. They burned with something he recognized, something that lived in his own chest now. Anger, the kind that had been simmering for years, patient and controlled. Elena stood, walked to the chaotic desk, pulled out a thick file. 5 years ago, Webb hacked the Crawford predictive routing protocol. My algorithm, the one that made me a billionaire. He rebranded it, sued me for copyright infringement, and buried me in litigation. The pieces started connecting in Ryan's mind, forming a picture he didn't want to see. "You had money to fight." Elena's jaw tightened. "I had money. What I didn't have was time. My husband Daniel was a literature professor, gentle, kind, completely removed from the tech world. During the depositions, his car went off the road. Brake line had been cut. Police investigated, found nothing. Convenient accident." She turned back to face Ryan, and he saw the raw wound in her expression. "I folded. Disappeared. Let Webb win. Because fighting wasn't worth living in a world without Daniel." The silence stretched between them, heavy with shared loss. Ryan thought about Sophie, about how he'd do anything to protect her, how the threat of losing her would break him in ways no amount of money could fix. "I'm sorry." The words felt inadequate. Elena shook her head. "Webb needs velocity flow because Nicole has what Apex lacks. Last-mile distribution infrastructure. The hub-and-spoke model that makes her company valuable." She paused, watching Ryan's face. "The model you designed. How do you know that?" But even as Ryan asked, he knew. The business journals, the technical papers Nicole had published under her own name, using his designs without credit. Elena pulled several pages from the file, spread them across the desk. Patent applications, all filed by Nicole Grant, listing her as sole inventor. But the initial sketches, the ones in the appendix that most people don't read, those have different handwriting. Cleaner, more precise, engineering handwriting. She slid one page toward him. "That's your work. You built Velocity Flow's foundation, and Nicole took credit." Ryan stared at the sketch, recognition hitting him like cold water. He'd drawn that diagram on a napkin at the diner where he worked night shifts, waiting tables to pay their rent, while Nicole pursued investors during the day. The hub-and-spoke distribution model designed to minimize transportation costs while maximizing coverage. It had been his breakthrough, the insight that made Velocity Flow viable. Nicole had kissed him when he'd shown it to her, told him he was brilliant, promised they were partners in everything. She'd filed the patent 3 weeks later after he'd formalized the designs. He'd been so busy working double shifts he hadn't even noticed until the approval came through. If Velocity Flow merges with Apex, they control 60% of global shipping. Elena's voice pulled him back. "Monopoly. Untouchable. And Marcus Webb gets to use your innovations to build an empire on top of the algorithm he stole from me." She moved around the desk, kneeled in front of Ryan's chair so they were eye level. "I've been waiting 5 years for a flaw in Webb's armor. I thought it would be a vulnerability in his code, some weakness I could exploit. I never imagined the flaw would be Nicole's ego." She threw away the architect. "What are you asking me to do?" Ryan's heart was pounding now, adrenaline cutting through the exhaustion. Elena reached into a drawer, pulled out a black folder embossed with gold lettering. "Titan Ventures. I want to stop the merger. I want to bankrupt Apex. I want to leave Nicole Grant with nothing but the realization that she destroyed the only person who ever truly believed in her. But I can't do it alone. The world thinks I'm crazy, reclusive, irrelevant. They won't listen to me. She opened the folder revealing pages of dense legal text. But they'll listen to Titan Ventures' new CEO. Ryan laughed a short, bitter sound. Elena, I'm a factory worker. I have a GED because I dropped out of MIT to support Nicole's dreams. I have $87 in my checking account and a daughter I only see on weekends. What makes you think I could run a company? You're the uncredited co-founder of a $400 million corporation. Elena's intensity didn't waver. You know Velocity Flow's vulnerabilities better than anyone. You designed the systems Nicole's been exploiting. I have capital $4.2 billion sitting in accounts I haven't touched since I went dark. What I need is a face for this operation. A warrior who has something to prove. But why me specifically? Ryan pushed back, needing to understand. You could hire 100 experienced executives. Elena stood paced to the window where rain still battered the glass. Because you have what they don't. Skin in the game. You want to see Nicole's face when she realizes she divorced the man who became her boss. That hunger, that need for vindication, I can't manufacture it. I can't buy it. It has to be real. And Ryan, what they did to you, what they did to us, that's real. The offer sat between them, impossible and tempting. Ryan thought about the piano, about Sophie's face when he'd had to tell her it was gone, about the way Nicole had looked at him in that conference room like he was an inconvenience to be managed. He thought about 10 years of sacrifice, of believing partnership meant putting someone else's dreams before your own, of waking up one day to discover you'd been erased from your own story. Elena was offering him a chance to rewrite the ending. Not revenge exactly. Justice. The restoration of something stolen. What would this partnership look like? Ryan heard himself asking, commitment already forming. Elena returned to the desk, pulled out additional documents. 50-50 equity split in Titan Ventures. We buy up Velocity Flow's supply chain before the merger completes. We acquire their debt, become their primary creditors. We squeeze Nicole's cash flow until the company's worth drops below Apex's interest threshold. The board will panic, vote her out, sell to us for pennies on the dollar. Ryan studied the papers, his engineering mind already seeing the elegant brutality of the plan. There's a catch. There's always a catch. Elena met his eyes. This has to be clean. We're not destroying innocent people's livelihoods. Any deal we make has to protect Velocity Flow's workers. They didn't ask to be caught in this. Ryan felt something ease in his chest. That was the answer he'd needed, the confirmation that Elena's anger hadn't consumed her ethics. I need guarantees. About Sophie. My custody arrangement can't be affected. Elena nodded. Already in the contract. Section 12. Your parental rights are protected, and if Nicole tries to use Titan against you in custody court, we have countermeasures. What kind of countermeasures? Documentation of her affair with Tyler during the marriage. Evidence she's been cooking Velocity Flow's books to impress Apex. Financial records showing she spent company money on personal expenses. Elena's expression was grim. I've been preparing for this for 3 weeks since I first learned about the merger. I knew Webb would make a move. I just needed the right partner to make my countermove. Ryan looked at the contract again, at the careful legal language protecting his interests, and realized Elena had been planning this since before he'd knocked on her door. You knew I'd come here. I knew someone would. Elena's honesty was stark. I've been monitoring Nicole's divorce proceedings. When I saw the settlement terms, saw how she was throwing you away, I put out feelers. Had people watching your movements. Made sure cab drivers in your area knew about the address confusion between Maple and Pemberton. She didn't apologize, didn't soften it. I needed you desperate enough to take a risk, angry enough to want justice, lost enough to walk through a stranger's door in a storm. Ryan should have been angry at the manipulation. Instead, he felt a strange respect. Elena had played chess while Nicole played checkers, thinking 3 moves ahead, setting traps and waiting for the pieces to fall into place. If we do this, I need to know you're not using me the way Nicole did. The words came out quiet but firm. I won't be someone's tool again. I won't build something just to watch someone else take credit. Elena extended her hand. I don't use people, Ryan. I partner with them. Everything in that contract is real. 50-50 means 50-50. You'll have equal say in every decision. We succeed together or we fail together. But I need to know you're committed. Because once we start this, Webb and Nicole will come at us with everything they have. It's going to get ugly. It's going to get personal. And I need to know you won't fold when it gets hard. Ryan took her hand. The handshake was firm, professional, sealing something that felt bigger than a business deal. He thought about Sophie, about the future he wanted to build for her, about showing his daughter that you don't have to accept being erased from your own story. He thought about the piano sitting in a Goodwill warehouse, about his mother's legacy treated like trash. He thought about 10 years of napkin sketches and midnight calculations that Nicole had claimed as her own. When do we start? Elena smiled, and for the first time since he'd walked into her house, it reached her eyes. We already have. Velocity Flow's Gary warehouse lease comes up for renewal Friday morning. Riverside Properties owns the building. As of 20 minutes ago, I own Riverside Properties through a Shell LLC. We're tripling the rent. Nicole's quarterly projections depend on that lease renewing at the current rate. When it doesn't, her numbers fall apart. Ryan felt his own smile forming, dark and satisfied. She'll try to negotiate. She'll fail. Elena pulled up a spreadsheet on her tablet. I've already identified 3 more pressure points. The maintenance contract for her truck fleet expires next month. The revolving credit line with First National is up for review, and the sublease on her Chicago offices has a clause allowing the landlord to terminate with 90 days' notice. The landlord is a subsidiary of a company I acquired 2 years ago. Ryan leaned forward, his mind racing through the implications. You're going to strangle her cash flow. I'm going to make her company toxic before Apex can finalize the merger. Elena's fingers moved across the screen, pulling up more files. But first, we need to make you look the part. Nicole divorced you thinking you're finished. When she sees you again, it needs to be clear she made a catastrophic mistake. The stylist arrives tomorrow morning. We have 3 weeks before the Chicago Tech Gala, where Nicole will be courting Apex investors. That's where we make our move. That's where you walk in as the CEO of Titan Ventures and watch her world start to crumble. 3 weeks. Ryan's exhaustion was lifting, replaced by something sharper. What happens between now and then? Training. Elena stood energized now. You need to learn corporate warfare, how to read a balance sheet like a battlefield map, how to short a stock, how to walk into a boardroom and command respect. You have the intelligence, Ryan. You wouldn't have designed Velocity Flow's infrastructure if you didn't. But you've been working factory floors while Nicole played in the boardroom. We need to level that field fast. Ryan stood as well, feeling the weight of wet clothes and accumulated exhaustion. Where do I sleep? Elena gestured toward the hallway. 3rd floor, east wing. Guest suite. There's a bathroom clothes in the closet that should fit. Tomorrow we start at 6. Bring everything you have on Velocity Flow's operations. Every sketch, every memo, every late-night idea, Nicole dismissed. We're building a weapon, and you're the one who knows where all the vulnerabilities are hidden. The guest suite was larger than the apartment Ryan had shared with Nicole in their early years. King bed with Egyptian cotton sheets, bathroom done in Italian marble, a view of the rain-soaked city through tall windows. Ryan set his duffel bag on a bench, pulled out his old notebook. Page after page of designs, calculations, innovations he'd sketched during breaks at the factory. Ideas Nicole had barely glanced at, too busy with investor meetings and strategic planning sessions. He'd stopped showing them to her after the first year, learned to keep his thoughts to himself, convinced that his role was to support her vision rather than contribute his own. His phone buzzed, finally charged enough to power on. Messages flooded in. David apologizing for missing the call, offering the couch whenever Ryan needed it. A reminder from Sophie's school about parent-teacher conferences next month. An email from the factory confirming his shift schedule for the week. Ryan stared at that last one, the mundane reality of his life asserting itself. He was supposed to work Monday night, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., operating the same machinery he'd been running for 3 years. The same job Nicole had dismissed when she told Tyler about her plans to divorce. He has no ambition. He's content being small. Ryan deleted the email without responding. Whatever came next, it wouldn't involve that factory floor. He pulled up Sophie's contact, hesitated, then sent a message. "I love you, Peanut. See you Saturday. Can't wait to spend the whole day together. We'll do whatever you want." The response came immediately, despite the late hour. "Love you too, Daddy. Can we get pancakes? And go to the park if it stops raining." Ryan smiled, typing back, "Pancakes and park. It's a date. Sleep tight." He set the phone aside, moved to the window. Rain streaked the glass, blurring the city lights into impressionist smears. Somewhere out there, Nicole was probably with Tyler celebrating the successful execution of her divorce strategy. Somewhere, Marcus Webb was planning his merger, counting the money he'd make from absorbing Velocity Flow into his empire. They thought they'd won. They thought Ryan Mitchell was finished, irrelevant, too broken to fight back. They were wrong. Ryan fell asleep in a bed that cost more than his car in a house owned by a woman he'd met 4 hours ago, committed to a plan that would either resurrect his life or destroy what little remained. The rain drummed against the windows, washing away the last traces of who he'd been that morning. When he woke, he'd start becoming someone new. Someone Nicole wouldn't recognize. Someone who'd learned that the worst thing you can do to a person isn't taking everything they have. It's making them think they're nothing without you. Nicole was about to learn the difference. Morning came gray and cold. Ryan woke to find fresh clothes laid out on the bench where his duffel had been. Dark jeans, a crisp button-down boots that were broken in but well-maintained. A note in Elena's precise handwriting. "War Room Basement, level 6 a.m. Coffee's ready. Bring the notebook." He dressed quickly, grabbed the worn pages of his designs, and followed the sound of activity downstairs. The basement had been converted into something that looked like a military command center merged with a tech startup. Servers hummed against one wall, their lights blinking in rhythmic patterns. 8 monitors displayed financial data, news feeds, real-time stock prices. A massive whiteboard covered another wall, already marked with diagrams and timelines in Elena's handwriting. She stood in front of it, hair still wet from a shower, wearing dark slacks and a simple black blazer. She turned when Ryan entered, gestured to a mug waiting on the desk. "Double espresso. You'll need it." Ryan took the coffee, studied the whiteboard. Velocity Flow's organizational chart took up the left side with names and positions connected by lines showing power structures and relationships. On the right, Apex's corporate hierarchy mirrored it. Between them, Elena had drawn connections in red marker, mapping the merger's intended integration. It was elegant and brutal, showing exactly how Webb planned to absorb Nicole's company while eliminating redundancies, which meant laying off approximately 30% of Velocity Flow's workforce. Nicole knows this. Ryan's voice was flat. "She knows Webb's going to gut her company, and she's doing it anyway." Elena nodded. "She gets a C-suite position at Apex, a substantial payout, and a seat on the board. For Nicole, that's more valuable than loyalty to the people who built her company." Ryan thought about the workers he'd met during the early days, the logistics coordinators and warehouse managers who'd believed in Nicole's vision, who'd taken pay cuts to help the startup survive its first lean years. They'd be the ones sacrificed to make this merger work. Can we save them? The question came out before Ryan could stop it. Elena's expression softened slightly. "That's why I like you. Most people in your position would be thinking pure revenge. You're thinking collateral damage." She picked up a marker, drew a circle around the lower tiers of Velocity Flow's org chart. "When we acquire the company, we honor all employment contracts. No layoffs for 18 months. Stock options get protected at pre-crash values. The people who built Velocity Flow get rewarded. Nicole and her executive team, the ones who enabled this betrayal, they get nothing. How do we crash the stock?" Ryan moved closer to the board, his engineering mind engaging with the problem. Elena's smile was sharp. "3-pronged attack. First, we leak the OSHA violations. Your friend David Park works in construction, right? Safety inspections are public record once filed." Ryan nodded slowly. David had mentioned concerns about Velocity Flow's warehouse conditions 6 months ago, had asked Ryan if Nicole was cutting corners on maintenance. Ryan had dismissed it, trusted that Nicole wouldn't risk her workers' safety for profit margins. The brake pads on the Gary fleet are 8 months overdue for replacement. Elena pulled up maintenance logs on one of the monitors. Normally that's a minor violation, maybe a fine. But if someone files a formal complaint and OSHA does a surprise inspection finding this, plus the safety issues in the warehouses, Velocity Flow faces potential operational shutdown until everything's fixed. Stock drops minimum 8% on that news alone. Ryan felt sick. 8 months. People have been driving those trucks. Nicole's been sending workers onto the road in vehicles she knows are dangerous. Second prong. Elena moved to another section of the board. We announced Titan Ventures' entry into the market. I've been sitting on 40 patents related to logistics software innovations I developed after Crawford but never commercialized. We go public with a new platform that makes Velocity Flow's system look obsolete. The market realizes Nicole's company isn't the future, it's already dated. Stock drops another 12% as investors reassess valuation. And the third prong. Ryan could already see where this was going. We let it leak that Titan Ventures has acquired Velocity Flow's debt. 60% of it, you said. Elena confirmed. We buy it quietly from 3 separate banks over the next 2 weeks. Then we let Nicole's board know we own their obligations. Suddenly, Velocity Flow isn't an independent company negotiating a merger from strength. They're a debtor whose primary creditor could call in the loans at any moment. That uncertainty kills the remaining stock value. 15% drop, maybe more if panic selling triggers. 35% total. Ryan did the math. Stock goes from $47 to around $30. Elena nodded. And Apex's offer is contingent on stock price holding above $35 through closing. Once we crash it below that threshold, Webb either renegotiates the entire deal at a much lower valuation, making it less attractive to Nicole's board, or he walks away entirely. Either way, Nicole's merger falls apart. The board loses confidence. They start looking for alternative buyers, who happen to be us. Ryan finished. Titan Ventures swoops in with an offer that protects workers but removes Nicole from power. We get the company at a bargain price, restore its value using Elena's patents, and rebuild it into what it should have been all along. He looked at Elena. This is brilliant, and completely ruthless. Webb destroyed my life using the law. Nicole destroyed yours the same way. Elena's voice hardened. I'm not interested in illegal revenge. I want to beat them at their own game using the same systems they used against us. Corporate warfare is just chess with higher stakes. The better strategist wins. Ryan understood. This wasn't about burning everything down in rage. It was about surgical precision, about dismantling an empire piece by piece until nothing remained but the realization that you'd been outplayed. They worked through the morning and into the afternoon, Ryan learning the language of hostile takeovers and market manipulation. Elena taught him how to read quarterly reports for weaknesses, how to identify vulnerable positions in a supply chain, how to use shell companies and holding structures to hide your moves until the moment of maximum impact. She was a patient teacher breaking down complex financial maneuvers into logical steps that Ryan's engineering brain could process like mechanical systems. By evening, Ryan's head was swimming with new information. Elena ordered dinner from somewhere that delivered in actual china with real silverware food that made the diner meals Ryan was used to seem like cardboard by comparison. They ate in the library, reviewing Velocity Flow's third-quarter earnings report, identifying the lies hidden in optimistic projections. Nicole had inflated revenue numbers by booking sales that hadn't actually closed, counting purchase orders as completed transactions. Legal technically, but misleading. The kind of accounting tricks that worked until someone looked close enough to notice the discrepancies. How long have you known Nicole was doing this? Ryan pushed his plate away, appetite gone. Elena pulled up older reports, showed him the pattern emerging over 2 years, since she started talking to Apex. Webb probably taught her these tricks. Make the company look more valuable than it is, inflate the merger price, cash out before anyone realizes the numbers were smoke. Ryan felt the anger building again, the slow burn of betrayal. Everyone who invested in Velocity Flow based on those reports, everyone who bought stock thinking the company was sound, Nicole had been lying to all of them. Which gives us ammunition. Elena closed the reports. We don't need to prove fraud. We just need to raise questions. Hint that earnings might be restated. Suggest there could be accounting irregularities. The uncertainty alone will tank investor confidence. Ryan was beginning to understand the subtle violence of corporate warfare. You didn't need to destroy your enemy directly. You just needed to make everyone else doubt them. Reputation and trust were currencies more valuable than money, and once spent almost impossible to reclaim. 3 weeks until the gala. Ryan rubbed his eyes, exhausted but wired. What do I need to learn before then? Everything. Elena's smile was wry. How to give a 30-second elevator pitch that makes investors lean forward. How to deflect hostile questions without looking defensive. How to walk into a room full of sharks and make them think you're the apex predator. She stood stretched. But first, tomorrow we handle the external presentation. Vincent Rhodes arrives at 9. He's going to make you look like you belong in their world. Who's Vincent Rhodes? The name meant nothing to Ryan. Best stylist on the East Coast. He dresses senators and CEOs. Elena walked to the window, looked out at the city lights. People make snap judgments in the first 3 seconds. Your clothes, your grooming, your posture, all of it sends signals before you speak a word. Right now, you look like what Nicole said you were. A factory worker, a man with no ambition. We're going to change that. You'll still be you, Ryan, but you'll be the version of yourself Nicole never bothered to see. Ryan joined her at the window. His reflection looked back tired and uncertain. What if I can't pull this off? What if I walk into that gala and everyone sees through it? Sees that I'm just a guy who dropped out of MIT and spent the last decade being someone's support staff. Elena turned to face him. Nicole told you that you were nothing without her, that you had no ambition, no future, no value beyond what you could do for her dreams. She spent 10 years convincing you it was true. But Ryan, you built Velocity Flow's foundation. You designed a distribution system that's worth $400 million. You did that while working night shifts and raising a daughter and believing in someone who didn't deserve your faith. That's not a man with no ambition. That's a man who was investing in the wrong partner. The words hit something deep in Ryan's chest, cracking open a realization he'd been avoiding. He'd spent so long making himself smaller to make space for Nicole's dreams that he'd forgotten he had his own. He'd been so focused on being a good husband, a supportive partner, that he'd lost track of being Ryan Mitchell, the MIT engineering student who'd once believed he could solve impossible problems. That person was still there, buried under years of compromise and sacrifice. Elena was offering him permission to remember. They worked until midnight, Elena walking Ryan through case studies of successful corporate raids, barbarians at the gate, the fall of Enron, how Facebook decimated MySpace. Each story followed similar patterns. Identify weakness, exploit systematically, move faster than your opponent can respond. The key was information asymmetry. You had to know more about their business than they knew about yours. You had to see the vulnerabilities they'd blinded themselves to through ego or habit or desperation. Ryan finally collapsed into bed around 1 a.m., his mind still racing through strategies and contingencies. He dreamed of spreadsheets and stock tickers of Nicole's face when she saw him walk into the gala, of Sophie playing piano on the stage at Carnegie Hall while he watched from the front row, proud and present. He dreamed of becoming someone his daughter could be proud to call her father, not because of money or status, but because he'd refused to stay defeated, because he'd chosen to fight back. Vincent Rhodes arrived at 9 sharp, carrying enough garment bags to outfit a small army. He was tall and lean, with silver hair and sharp cheekbones, the kind of man who made fashion look like architecture. He circled Ryan once, taking measurements with his eyes, then nodded. "We're working with good bones, strong shoulders, good height. You've been hiding in clothes that apologize for existing. We're going to fix that." Rhodes's assistant set up a makeshift fitting area in the library, transforming it into a high-end boutique. The first suit jacket Rhodes put on him was charcoal gray, cut to emphasize his frame without looking aggressive. Ryan barely recognized himself in the mirror. The man looking back stood straighter, took up more space, commanded attention. Rhodes adjusted the shoulders, marked the sleeves with chalk. You're not a tech bro in a hoodie. You're not Wall Street in pinstripes. You're something else. An engineer who understands business. Someone who built something real with his hands. We dress you like that. Substance over flash. Precision over show. They worked through the morning, Rhodes building a wardrobe that felt like armor. Dark suits in gray and navy, crisp white shirts with subtle details, boots that were polished but practical. No tie. Rhodes was adamant about that. Ties signal you're trying to fit in. Open collar signals you don't need to. You're establishing your own rules. The accessories were minimal. A Bulova Precisionist vintage but perfectly maintained, the kind of watch an engineer would wear because it kept perfect time, not because it cost a fortune. Elena watched from the corner, occasionally vetoing choices that felt too corporate, pushing Rhodes toward pieces that felt authentic to who Ryan actually was. She understood something Rhodes didn't. This wasn't just about looking the part. It was about Ryan reclaiming himself, finding the version of his identity that existed outside Nicole's shadow. The clothes had to feel like home, not costume. By afternoon, they had it. Ryan stood in the mirror wearing charcoal pants, a white shirt, and a navy blazer, looking like someone who'd walked away from academia into business on his own terms. "You'll wear this to the gala." Rhodes packed the suit carefully. "The rest of the wardrobe is for the 3 weeks leading up to it. Board meetings, investor lunches, anywhere you need to be taken seriously." Ryan thanked him, meaning it. Rhodes paused at the door. "Mr. Mitchell, I've dressed a lot of powerful people. Most of them wear power like borrowed clothes. You wear it like you've been saving it for the right occasion. Don't waste that." The rest of the week blurred into intensive training. Elena brought in experts on corporate finance, securities, law, media relations. Each one taught Ryan a different aspect of the game Nicole and Webb were playing. How to answer a journalist's question without actually answering it. How to read a balance sheet's footnotes for hidden disasters. How to negotiate from a position of weakness while appearing strong. Ryan absorbed it all, his brain making connections between business strategy and the engineering problems he'd solved for years. Both required seeing systems holistically, identifying failure points, optimizing for efficiency. Saturday morning arrived too soon, and not soon enough. Ryan borrowed Elena's car, drove to Nicole's parents' house in Wisconsin to pick up Sophie. His daughter ran out the front door when she saw him, her joy uncomplicated and perfect. "Daddy." She launched herself into his arms, 8 years old and full of energy. "You promised pancakes." Ryan held her tight, breathing in the scent of her shampoo. "I never break promises to you, Peanut. Let's go find the best pancakes in the city." They spent the day in Millennium Park despite the cold, feeding ducks and riding the carousel. Sophie chattered about school, about her friends, about the new piano teacher Nicole had hired, who was nice but didn't understand that Sophie liked to improvise, not just play what was written. Ryan listened, really listened, storing away every detail. When Sophie asked about the divorce, her voice small and worried, Ryan chose his words carefully. "Your mom and I couldn't make our marriage work. But that doesn't change anything about how much we love you. You're still the most important person in both our worlds. Is it true you don't live in our house anymore?" Sophie's eyes were wide, trying to understand. Ryan nodded. "I'm staying somewhere else for now, but I'm working on building something new, something that's going to make you proud." Sophie considered this. "Will you still come to my piano recital next month? I'm playing Gershwin." Ryan's heart swelled. "I wouldn't miss it for anything. Gershwin is perfect for you. Did you pick it yourself?" Sophie nodded proudly. "Mrs. Harrison said I should play something classical, but I told her Gershwin is American classical and that counts." They got ice cream even though it was freezing, sat on a bench watching the city move around them. Sophie leaned against his shoulder. "I miss you, Daddy." "I miss you too, Peanut. More than you know. But things are going to get better. I'm going to make sure of it." He said it like a promise, and Sophie accepted it with the faith children have in their parents. "Okay." She smiled up at him. "Can we go to the Science Museum next weekend?" Ryan laughed. "Anything you want. You're the boss." Dropping Sophie back at Nicole's parents' house felt like tearing off a limb. She hugged him extra long, making him promise to call every night before bed. Ryan drove back to Chicago with tears in his eyes, the anger at Nicole burning hotter. She'd taken so much from him, his work, his credit, his marriage. But the worst thing she'd taken was time with Sophie. Years of daily moments he'd never get back. Bedtime stories and morning pancakes and helping with homework. Nicole had reduced him to weekends, to being a visitor in his daughter's life. That theft was the one he couldn't forgive. Elena was waiting when he got back, Chinese takeout containers spread across the library table. How was she? Ryan smiled despite everything. Perfect. She's playing Gershwin at her recital next month. Elena raised an eyebrow. American Prelude. Nice choice. Ryan looked at her in surprise. You know Gershwin? Elena shrugged. My mother was a piano teacher. I grew up with Rhapsody in Blue playing at 6 a.m. every morning. It's why I went into math and science. Rebellion. They ate and planned, Ryan catching Elena up on the minor details of his day while she walked him through the week ahead. Monday, they'd execute the first move, the OSHA complaint that would trigger inspections. Wednesday, they'd leak news of Titan Ventures' market entry. Friday, they'd finalize the debt acquisition. Each step carefully timed to create maximum pressure on Velocity Flow's stock price. Nicole would be scrambling to contain the damage, trying to keep Apex confident while her company fell apart around her. Ryan's phone buzzed. A text from Nicole. We need to discuss Sophie's schedule. Tyler and I are planning a vacation in December, and I'll need to adjust your weekends. The casual presumption in her words, the way she mentioned Tyler like he was already part of Sophie's life, it made Ryan's hands shake. He showed Elena the message. She read it, her expression darkening. Tyler's never even met Sophie. Nicole's introducing her daughter to her affair partner less than a month after the divorce. Ryan felt the rage building. What do I say? Nothing. Elena's voice was flat. Not yet. In 3 weeks, when we own her company and she's facing unemployment, we renegotiate the custody arrangement from a position of strength. Right now, we let her think she's won. Let her plan her vacation. Let her believe Ryan Mitchell is too weak to fight back. Ryan stared at the message, every instinct screaming to respond, to defend his rights as Sophie's father. But Elena was right. Responding now accomplished nothing. Better to wait to strike when Nicole was vulnerable, when she'd already lost everything else. The second week was harder. Ryan had to quit the factory job, walking away from the only steady income he had. His manager was disappointed but understanding. You're too smart for this floor, Mitchell. Always knew you were meant for something bigger. Ryan cleaned out his locker, said goodbye to the guys he'd worked alongside for 3 years. They were good people, honest workers who showed up and did their jobs without complaint. The kind of people Nicole had forgotten existed while she played power games in boardrooms. Ryan promised himself that when Titan succeeded, he'd find ways to hire people like them. Elena filled his days with preparation. Mock board meetings where she played hostile investors, throwing questions designed to rattle him. Media training with a former journalist who taught him how to control an interview instead of being controlled by it. Financial modeling sessions where they projected Velocity Flow's quarterly results under different scenarios. Ryan's brain ached from the information overload, but he was learning. More importantly, he was changing. The man who'd walked out of that divorce meeting 2 weeks ago wouldn't recognize the person he was becoming. Wednesday of the second week, they made their first public move. Titan Ventures launched a website announcing their entry into the logistics space, complete with white papers showcasing Elena's new patents. The technology was revolutionary, using AI and machine learning to optimize routes in real time, adapting to traffic and weather faster than any human dispatcher could manage. The logistics industry blogs went wild, analysts scrambling to understand where this company had come from. Velocity Flow's stock dropped 8% in a single day. Ryan watched the numbers fall on the monitors in Elena's war room, feeling a grim satisfaction. Nicole would be in emergency meetings with her board, trying to explain why a competitor had emerged seemingly overnight with technology that made her systems obsolete. She'd be calling Apex, reassuring them the merger was still valuable. Webb would be questioning that value, wondering if he'd overestimated Velocity Flow's worth. The dominoes were starting to fall. That night, Elena opened a bottle of wine from her cellar, something expensive enough to make Ryan nervous about drinking it. To the first victory. She raised her glass. Ryan clinked it against hers. To many more. They drank the wine rich and complex. Elena studied him over the rim of her glass. You're different than you were 2 weeks ago. Ryan considered that. I feel different. Like I've been asleep and I'm finally waking up. Elena nodded slowly. Nicole made you forget who you were. That's what abusers do, Ryan. They convince you that you're nothing without them. But you were never nothing. You just believed the lie. The word hung in the air. Abuser. Ryan had never thought of Nicole that way, had always framed their relationship as a partnership that failed. But Elena was right. The systematic erosion of his confidence, the way Nicole dismissed his ideas while stealing them, the isolation from his friends and passions, the control over finances and decisions. It had been abuse, subtle and sophisticated, but abuse nonetheless. Recognizing it felt like opening a door he'd kept locked for years. Behind it was anger, yes, but also grief. Mourning for the time he'd lost the person he might have been if he'd valued himself more. I should have seen it. Ryan set down his glass. Should have left earlier. Elena shook her head. That's what victims always say. But you loved her. You trusted her. You believed in the partnership she promised. None of that makes you weak or stupid. It makes you human. Ryan met her eyes, saw understanding there. You know this from experience. Elena's smile was sad. My first marriage before Daniel. I was 23, fresh off my first success. He was older, sophisticated, told me I was brilliant but rough around the edges. Spent 3 years smoothing my edges until I almost disappeared. Left him built. Crawford found Daniel. Real partnership showed me what a mockery the first marriage had been. They sat in comfortable silence, two people who'd survived different versions of the same betrayal. The wine mellowed Ryan's anger into something sharper and more focused. Determination. He was going to win this. Not just for revenge, but for redemption. For Sophie, who deserved a father who taught her to value herself. For every person who'd been made to feel small by someone who should have built them up. For the version of himself that deserved a second chance. Friday of the third week, everything accelerated. The debt acquisition finalized Ryan and Elena, now holding 62% of Velocity Flow's obligations. The OSHA investigation leaked to the press, journalists reporting on potential safety violations. Velocity Flow's stock was at $29 and falling. Nicole's board called an emergency meeting. Through carefully placed sources, Elena learned they were discussing contingency plans, questioning whether the Apex merger could survive the mounting problems. Ryan studied the stock charts, watching the destruction of Nicole's empire in real time. He should have felt triumphant. Instead, he felt hollow. This is too easy. He looked at Elena. Why isn't she fighting back? Elena's expression was grim. Because she doesn't know who's attacking her. To Nicole, Titan Ventures is just a random competitor. She has no idea you're involved. No idea I exist beyond ancient history. She's fighting blind, trying to contain damage without understanding the source. That's our advantage. But it won't last. Ryan understood. Once we show up at the gala, once she sees me, she'll know. She'll go nuclear. Elena nodded. Which is why we need to be ready for her countermove. Nicole's smart, vicious when cornered. She'll try to use Sophie against you. Try to paint you as unstable, unemployed, unfit for custody. We need to preempt that. Ryan's protective instincts flared. How? Legal documentation. Elena pulled out files she'd been preparing. Statements from Sophie's school showing you're engaged and present. Financial records proving you have stable backing. A letter from a child psychologist affirming that Sophie's well-being is your priority. We build a wall she can't breach. Ryan spent the weekend organizing his defense, making sure every aspect of his life could withstand Nicole's inevitable assault. He called Sophie every night, their conversations recorded and saved as evidence of his involvement in her life. He met with lawyers. Elena recommended people who specialized in custody battles where one parent tried to weaponize wealth. They assured him that courts cared about stability and love, not bank accounts. Ryan wanted to believe them. The fear of losing Sophie was the only thing that could make him hesitate in this war. Sunday night, 5 days before the gala, Elena's phone rang. She answered, listened, her face going pale. She hung up without saying a word. What? Ryan's alarm spiked. Elena met his eyes. Marcus Webb just called me. Personally. Said he'd heard rumors about Titan Ventures. Wanted to meet. Discuss possible collaboration. Ryan processed that. He knows. Not about you specifically. But he knows someone's targeting Velocity Flow. He's trying to find out who and turn them into an ally instead of an enemy. Are you going to meet him? Elena was already shaking her head. No. But his call means we've moved from the shadows into his awareness. Things are about to get more dangerous. Webb doesn't just play business games, Ryan. He plays for keeps. If he sees us as a threat to his merger, he'll come at us with everything. Legal, financial, maybe even physical. We need to be prepared for that. Ryan thought about the brake line on Daniel's car, about the convenient accident that had never been proven. What do we do? Elena stood, paced to the window. We move up the timeline. The gala is Saturday. We were going to wait until then to make our move, but if Webb's already suspicious, we need to act now. Tomorrow we call a press conference. Announce that Titan Ventures is making an offer to acquire Velocity Flow. Force Nicole and Webb to respond before they're ready. That's a huge risk. Ryan followed her logic. If we show our hand too early, they'll have time to mount a defense. Elena turned back to him. But if we wait and Webb figures out who we are, he sabotages us first. This way we control the narrative. We frame the acquisition as a rescue mission. Titan Ventures saving Velocity Flow from mismanagement and failed merger prospects. We're the heroes. Nicole's the incompetent CEO who ran her company into the ground. The board will be much more likely to accept our offer if we position it right. Ryan felt the pieces clicking into place. We'd still go to the gala, still make the public appearance. But by then, the offer would already be on the table. Nicole would have to face me knowing I'm not just competition. I'm the person trying to take everything she has. The symmetry of it was perfect. Nicole had divorced him thinking he was nothing. She'd see him at the gala as the CEO attempting to acquire the company she'd built on his designs. The reversal was almost poetic. They worked through the night preparing the press release and acquisition proposal. Elena's lawyers reviewed every word, making sure the language was legally bulletproof. The offer was generous to shareholders and employees, brutal to existing management. Ryan Mitchell and Elena Crawford would assume control, implementing new technology and protecting jobs. Nicole Grant and her executive team would be removed, given severance but no ongoing role. It was a corporate execution disguised as a rescue. Dawn broke over Chicago, pale light filtering through the library windows. Ryan hadn't slept, running on coffee and adrenaline. Elena looked equally exhausted, her hair escaping its knot, dark circles under her eyes. They'd built something together in these 3 weeks, a partnership that felt more real than his marriage ever had. Not romance exactly, something deeper, mutual respect between two people who'd been destroyed and chose to rebuild. Two engineers of their own redemption. The press conference was scheduled for 10 a.m. Ryan showered, dressed in one of the suits Vincent Rhodes had created, looked at himself in the mirror and saw someone he was starting to recognize. Not the man who'd knocked on Elena's door 3 weeks ago, broken and desperate. Not the husband who'd spent 10 years making himself smaller. Someone in between. Someone still becoming. He thought about Sophie, about showing his daughter that you could fall and get back up. That being knocked down wasn't the same as being defeated. Elena was waiting in the foyer, wearing a sharp navy suit and heels that made her even taller. She looked every inch the tech billionaire she'd once been, power radiating from her like heat. Ready? She didn't ask. Ryan nodded. For Sophie. For everyone Nicole crushed on her way up. For both of us. Elena's smile was fierce. Then let's go show them what a real partnership looks like. They rode to the press conference in Elena's car, a sleek Mercedes that Ryan had barely noticed in the garage. The media had been alerted, journalists gathering at the downtown hotel where Elena had rented a conference room. News of Titan Ventures was already building buzz in tech circles. Adding an acquisition announcement would make this one of the biggest business stories of the week. Ryan felt his nerves trying to surface, pushed them down. He'd practiced this, knew his talking points, understood the story they were telling. The conference room was packed. Cameras, microphones, journalists from every major outlet. Ryan walked to the podium beside Elena, his heart pounding but his expression calm. This was it. The moment everything changed. The moment Nicole's world started crumbling and his started rebuilding. Elena stepped to the microphone first, her voice clear and strong. "Good morning. I'm Elena Crawford, CEO of Titan Ventures. With me is Ryan Mitchell, our Chief Operating Officer and co-founder. We're here to announce our intention to acquire Velocity Flow Corporation." The room erupted. Ryan stood still, letting the chaos wash over him. Somewhere across the city, Nicole was about to get a phone call that would destroy her morning. Somewhere Marcus Webb was realizing his merger had just become exponentially more complicated. And somewhere a little girl named Sophie was going to school unaware that her father had just declared war on her mother's empire. Ryan thought about the piano in the Goodwill warehouse, about his mother's legacy treated like trash, about 10 years of stolen credit and dismissed dreams. The war had started, and this time Ryan Mitchell wasn't backing down. The press conference detonated across financial news within minutes. Bloomberg terminals lit up with alerts. CNBC interrupted regular programming. Twitter exploded with speculation about Elena Crawford's return and the mysterious Ryan Mitchell at her side. Velocity Flow's stock, already wounded, began hemorrhaging value as traders processed the implications. A hostile takeover attempt from a competitor with superior technology and majority debt ownership. Nicole Grant's merger dream was disintegrating in real time. Ryan's phone started vibrating before they'd even left the hotel. Messages from old colleagues asking if it was really him on television. Questions from journalists requesting interviews. Nothing from Nicole yet, but that silence felt more ominous than reassuring. Elena drove them back to the brownstone, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. "We've committed now. No walking back from this." Ryan watched Chicago slide past the windows. "Good. I'm tired of walking back." The war room monitors showed the carnage. Velocity Flow down another 17% by noon, trading suspended twice for volatility. Apex's stock also dropping as analysts questioned whether their merger target was about to be stolen. Marcus Webb would be in emergency sessions with his board deciding whether to increase his offer or cut his losses. Nicole would be fielding calls from panicked investors trying to maintain confidence while her foundation crumbled. Elena pulled up a news clip. A business analyst was breaking down Titan Ventures technology on screen, comparing it favorably to Velocity Flow's dated systems. The language was brutal. Obsolete architecture, failed innovation pipeline, management asleep at the wheel while competitors advanced. Nicole's face appeared in a file photo, professional and polished. The chyron underneath read, "Under siege, can Grant save her company?" Ryan felt a dark satisfaction watching Nicole's image associated with failure. For 10 years she'd been the success story while he languished in obscurity. The reversal tasted better than he'd expected, but the victory was temporary. Elena's expression remained tense. "Webb will retaliate. We've made ourselves targets." She pulled up security camera feeds around the brownstone systems Ryan hadn't realized existed. Motion sensors, facial recognition software, direct lines to private security firms. "You've been planning for this?" Ryan studied the elaborate setup. Elena nodded. "Since Daniel died, I don't take chances with powerful enemies. Webb has connections to people who solve problems violently when legal methods fail. We need to assume he's already looking for leverage against us." "What kind of leverage?" Ryan's protective instincts immediately jumped to Sophie. "Exactly." Elena typed commands, bringing up a new screen. "I've already arranged security for your daughter. Discreet professional. They'll watch the school, your ex-in-law's house, anywhere Sophie might be vulnerable. If Webb tries to use her to pressure you, we'll know immediately." Ryan felt gratitude and unease mixing. He'd started this wanting to reclaim what Nicole stole. Now he was entering a world where his daughter needed bodyguards. The gala was Saturday night, 4 days away. Elena walked Ryan through what to expect. 800 people, mostly industry executives and investors. Nicole would be there with Tyler, trying to project confidence despite the chaos. Webb would attend assessing threats and opportunities. Ryan and Elena's presence would shift every dynamic in the room. We're not going to hide in the corner. Elena's plan was aggressive. We work the room talk to board members, make it clear Titan isn't going away. Let Nicole see you comfortable and powerful. Let her understand exactly what she threw away. Ryan practiced his pitch until the words felt natural. Titan Ventures represents the future of logistics technology. We're not interested in destroying velocity flow, we're interested in saving it from mismanagement. The employees deserve leadership that values innovation over ego. Shareholders deserve honesty over inflated projections. We're offering both. Elena played hostile investor, throwing curveball questions designed to shake him. Why should we trust a CEO who's been out of the game for a decade? Ryan met her challenge calmly. I've been building systems while others were building brands. Substance over flash. Results over rhetoric. Thursday afternoon brought the first direct countermove. Nicole's lawyers filed an emergency injunction seeking to block Titan's acquisition attempt on antitrust grounds. The legal argument was thin, clearly a delaying tactic, but it would require response. Elena's legal team moved immediately, filing counter-arguments that exposed the frivolousness of Nicole's claims. The judge scheduled a hearing for Monday after the weekend after the gala. Nicole was buying time, trying to shore up support before facing Ryan publicly. That evening, Ryan called Sophie for their nightly conversation. She was excited about a science project building a model solar system with papier-mâché planets. Her enthusiasm was infectious, pulling Ryan out of the corporate warfare mindset into something purer. "You sound happy, Daddy." Sophie's observation cut through his defenses. "I am Peanut. I'm building something important. Something I should have built a long time ago. Will I get to see it?" Sophie's question held innocent curiosity. Ryan smiled. "Soon. When it's finished, you'll be the first person I show." Friday morning, Nicole finally called. Ryan had been expecting it, bracing for her rage. Instead, her voice came through cold and controlled. "You have 48 hours to withdraw your acquisition attempt. If you don't, I'll petition the court to revoke your custody pending a full evaluation of your fitness as a parent." The threat landed exactly where she'd aimed it. Ryan's hand tightened on the phone. "You'd use Sophie as a weapon." Nicole's laugh was bitter. "You started this war, Ryan. You don't get to claim moral high ground now. Withdraw, and we'll maintain the current arrangement. Continue, and I'll make sure you lose everything that matters." Ryan ended the call without responding, fury vibrating through his chest. Elena found him in the library, pacing like a caged animal. She filed the custody threat. The words came out harsh. Elena remained calm. "Her lawyers will argue you're unemployed and unstable, taking direction from a reclusive tech founder with a history of paranoid behavior. It's garbage, but it'll create uncertainty." Ryan stopped pacing. "Can she win?" Elena met his eyes. "Not if we execute perfectly. Our legal documentation is solid. But she can make the next few months hell. Drag you through evaluations and hearings, make you spend resources fighting her instead of finishing the acquisition. It's what she wants." Ryan saw the strategy clearly. "Divide my focus. Make me choose between Titan and Sophie. Force me to back down to protect my daughter." Elena nodded. "Classic intimidation. She's gambling that you love Sophie more than you hate her, that you'll sacrifice the company to preserve the custody arrangement." Ryan looked out the window at the city, thinking about his daughter's face, her trust, her belief that he'd always protect her. Nicole had calculated correctly. He would give up everything for Sophie, but he wouldn't have to, because Nicole made a mistake. Elena joined him at the window. "She assumed you're alone, that threatening Sophie would isolate you, force you to fold. She doesn't understand that you have a partner now, someone with resources to fight on multiple fronts simultaneously." Ryan glanced at her. "You'd do that. Take on Nicole's custody battle while managing the acquisition." Elena's expression was fierce. "I've been waiting 5 years to destroy Marcus Webb, Nicole's collateral damage in that war. If she wants to threaten your daughter, she'll discover exactly how ruthless I can be when protecting what's mine." The possessive pronoun hung in the air. "What's mine?" Elena meant Titan meant their partnership, but the words carried additional weight Ryan wasn't ready to examine. They'd been living in the same house for 3 weeks, working 18-hour days, building something together that felt more intimate than business. Late nights reviewing contracts had turned into sharing stories about their pasts. Coffee at dawn had become a comfortable ritual. Ryan had started noticing small details. The way Elena pushed her hair back when concentrating, her dry humor emerging after midnight, the careful way she asked about Sophie, genuinely interested in his daughter's life. But there was no time for that kind of thinking. Not yet. Not while Nicole and Webb were still threats. Ryan forced his attention back to strategy. What's our move against the custody threat? Elena was already pulling up files. We accelerate character witnesses. I've contacted MIT, your old professors. They're willing to testify about your intelligence and dedication. Your factory supervisor will speak to your reliability. Sophie's teachers rave about your involvement. We build a wall of credible voices saying Ryan Mitchell is an exemplary father. And we go on offense. Elena's eyes glinted. Nicole's been traveling extensively for business, leaving Sophie with her parents for weeks at a time. We document every instance where she prioritized work over her daughter, every school event she missed, every canceled weekend. We don't need to prove she's a bad mother, just that you're the more present parent. The court cares about stability and involvement. You win on both metrics. Saturday arrived with aggressive autumn cold, the kind that promised early winter. Ryan spent the morning in final preparation, Elena drilling him on names and faces he'd need to recognize at the gala. Board members who might be swayed, journalists who could amplify their message, investors who'd appreciate Titan's vision. Vincent Rhodes arrived at 4 to do final fitting checks, adjusting Ryan's suit until it draped perfectly. You look dangerous. Rhodes stepped back satisfied, like someone who knows exactly what he's worth. The ballroom at the Drake Hotel glittered with wealth and ambition. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over women in designer gowns and men in tuxedos that cost more than cars. Nicole stood near the center with Tyler wearing crimson silk that screamed for attention. Her smile looked brittle makeup unable to completely hide the stress fractures. Tyler hovered at her elbow, whispering something that made her laugh. The sound carried false notes performance for nearby observers. Marcus Webb circled the room like a shark evaluating prey. 62 years old, but fit, bald head gleaming under the lights. His tuxedo was custom Savile Row, his presence commanding despite his average height. He moved from conversation to conversation, collecting information, dispensing calculated charm. His eyes were cold, assessing everyone for useful leverage. When he looked toward Nicole, his expression held contempt, barely masked as concern. She was a failing asset, potentially more trouble than value. Ryan and Elena arrived fashionably late-timed for maximum impact. The ballroom entrance required descending a curved staircase visible from the entire floor. Elena wore midnight blue silk, her dark hair swept up to reveal diamond earrings that caught light with every movement. She looked exactly like the tech billionaire she'd been, power and elegance combined. Ryan wore his charcoal suit, the Bulova precisionist, catching his eye as he checked the time. 8:15. Conversation in the ballroom created a low roar, hundreds of deals being negotiated over champagne. They started down the stairs. The effect was immediate and cascading. Someone near the bottom recognized Elena first, their exclamation cutting through nearby chatter. That's Elena Crawford. The name spread like ripples in water. Conversation stopped in expanding circles. Phones appeared as people searched for confirmation that the ghost of Silicon Alley had actually returned. Camera flashes started journalists scrambling to document the moment. By the time Ryan and Elena reached the ballroom floor, they had everyone's attention. Nicole's champagne glass hit the marble with a crystalline crash. Her face went white, then red, emotions cycling too fast to control. Ryan. The name came out strangled. Tyler touched her elbow, but she shook him off, staring across the room like she'd seen a ghost. No. Her lips formed the word, though no sound emerged. That can't be Ryan. Ryan met her stare across 50 feet of expensive real estate, his expression calm and controlled. He'd imagined this moment for weeks, rehearsed different versions of their first confrontation. None of the fantasies matched the reality. Nicole looked smaller than he remembered, diminished by panic. Tyler looked young and uncertain, clearly out of his depth. Webb's attention had locked onto their group, calculating the new variables entering his equation. Ryan took Elena's arm and started walking directly toward his ex-wife. The crowd parted. Ryan felt their eyes tracking every step, heard the whispers following in his wake. "That's the guy from the press conference. The mystery CEO trying to steal Velocity Flow. He's with Crawford. What's their connection?" Speculation built with each step closer to Nicole. She seemed frozen, unable to process his presence. Tyler recovered first, stepping forward with false bravado. "You're not on the guest list. Security can escort you out." Ryan stopped 3 feet away, close enough to see Nicole's hands trembling. "Hello, Nicole." Nicole found her voice, though it shook. "Ryan, what are you doing here? You don't have an invitation. You can't just crash." Elena stepped forward slightly, her smile cold as winter steel. "Actually, we're keynote speakers. Titan Ventures is a platinum sponsor of the Tech Summit. Perhaps you didn't review the sponsor list while dealing with your stock crisis." The jab landed perfectly. Nicole flinched. Webb had drifted closer now, standing within earshot, listening intently. Ryan focused entirely on Nicole, his tone conversational but carrying enough volume for nearby observers. "About that Gary warehouse. Titan Ventures purchased the property last week. Your lease renewal was denied this morning. I believe you have 90 days to vacate the premises." Nicole's face cycled through incomprehension to horror. "You can't. That's our primary distribution hub. We process 60% of East Coast volume through that facility." Ryan's expression didn't change. "You should have considered operational continuity before donating family heirlooms to Goodwill." The reference to the piano was deliberate, personal, a reminder that this was more than business. Nicole's eyes widened with understanding. "This is about the divorce. You're destroying my company because you're angry about our marriage ending." Her voice rose, attracting more attention. Tyler stepped between them, chest puffed. "You need to leave Nicole alone. You're embarrassing yourself, acting like some bitter ex-husband." Ryan finally looked at Tyler, really looked at him. The younger man wilted slightly under scrutiny. "Kid, I was designing distribution networks when you were in high school. Sit down before you make this worse for yourself." Tyler's jaw clenched, but he held his ground. "I'm the vice president of strategic operations. You can't talk to me like that." Ryan turned back to Nicole, dismissing Tyler entirely. Is he always this clueless, or is tonight special? Nicole's composure was fracturing, cracks spreading visibly. "Ryan, please, we can discuss this privately. There's no need to make a scene." Elena moved smoothly into the gap, addressing the growing circle of observers. "Forgive the personal drama, but there's actually important business news. Titan Ventures is offering to acquire Velocity Flow at $18 per share premium to current market value. We'll protect all employee positions and pension benefits." She paused, meeting Webb's eyes directly. "Unlike Apex's offer, which requires 30% workforce reduction and liquidates the pension fund to cover merger costs." Webb's expression went arctic. "You're making accusations without evidence. Our offer has been thoroughly vetted by Velocity Flow's board." Elena pulled a tablet from her clutch, swiped it open. "I have copies of your due diligence documents. Section 14 clearly outlines workforce reductions. Section 23 details pension fund restructuring, which is corporate speak for theft. Shall I email these to the journalists present, or would you like to revise your statement?" Webb's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Nicole looked between Webb and Elena, realization dawning. "You plan to gut my company. Fire my people. Webb told me the merger would preserve jobs." Webb's glance at Nicole was withering. "You believed what you wanted to believe. Business requires difficult decisions. Sentiment doesn't factor into profitability." Nicole swayed slightly, Tyler catching her elbow. Ryan watched his ex-wife's world reorganize itself around new truths. She'd trusted Webb's promises the way she'd once trusted Ryan's loyalty. Both had proven fragile. A board member Ryan recognized from photos approached. Robert Chandler, institutional investor with 12% of Velocity Flow shares. Mr. Mitchell, Miss Crawford. Your acquisition proposal is intriguing. The board would like to schedule a meeting Monday morning to discuss terms. Nicole turned on Chandler. You can't seriously consider this. Ryan's unemployed. He's nobody. He has no experience running a company. Chandler's expression was patient but firm. Mr. Mitchell co-founded your company, Nicole. His logistics designs are the foundation of your value. Perhaps you should have considered that before the divorce. The public rebuke silenced Nicole. Ryan felt no triumph, only weary satisfaction at facts finally acknowledged. More board members were gravitating toward their group, scenting blood in the water. Nicole's control over her own company was evaporating in real time. Tyler tried to pull her toward the exit, but she resisted, pride demanding she not flee. Webb had withdrawn slightly, recalculating his position. The merger was dying. His investment was souring. Nicole was becoming a liability. Ryan leaned in close enough that only Nicole could hear. You said I'd never amount to anything, that I was content being small. You were wrong about a lot of things, but that was the biggest mistake. Because I wasn't small, Nicole. You just needed me to believe I was so you could feel bigger. Nicole's eyes filled with tears, mascara threatening to run. I loved you. We could have built this together. Ryan pulled back his voice, carrying finality. You built it alone by stealing my work. Now you'll lose it the same way. Alone. He turned away, Elena at his side, leaving Nicole standing in the wreckage of her certainty. They moved through the ballroom, accepting congratulations from people Ryan didn't recognize, fielding questions from journalists about Titan's technology. Elena handled the details smoothly, Ryan adding technical depth when needed. They were a practiced team, finishing each other's thoughts, presenting united front. The evening stretched into performance, every conversation strategic, every smile calculated. By midnight, they'd secured commitments from enough board members to guarantee Monday's meeting would go their way. Velocity flow was effectively won pending legal formalities. Ryan and Elena left the gala in Elena's Mercedes, exhaustion and adrenaline mixing into something electric. We did it. Ryan stared at the city sliding past. First phase complete. Elena nodded, but her tension remained. Webb's planning his countermove. I saw him making calls in the corner. Whatever happens next will be worse than tonight. They reached the brownstone near 1 a.m. Elena parked in the private garage, security systems engaging as the door closed. The house felt like sanctuary after hours of performance. Ryan loosened his tie, followed Elena into the library where their war room monitors still displayed financial data. Velocity Flow had closed at $16 down from $29 a week ago, from $47 3 weeks ago. Nicole's $400 million company was now worth less than $200 million. The destruction was surgical and complete. Ryan poured 2 glasses of bourbon from the decanter Elena kept for late nights. They drank in silence, coming down from the evening's intensity. You were incredible tonight. Elena accepted the compliment with tired grace. So were you. Nicole didn't see it coming. None of them did. Ryan swirled the amber liquid. Is it always like this? Corporate warfare? The performance, the calculated cruelty? Elena considered. Only when it's personal. Most acquisitions are just math. This one's about justice. That makes it different. Sharper. Ryan's phone buzzed. A message from Nicole. We need to talk. Tomorrow, please. He showed it to Elena, who frowned. Could be a trap. Webb might be coaching her, looking for leverage. Or she's genuinely broken. Ryan studied the message, trying to read emotion through digital text. Either way, I'm not meeting her alone. Elena nodded. We maintain the advantage. She comes to us on our terms or not at all. Ryan typed a response. Titan office, 10 a.m. Bring your lawyer if you want. Sent. They finished the bourbon, the silence comfortable despite the churning thoughts. Ryan should have gone to bed, needed sleep before tomorrow's confrontation. Instead, he found himself asking the question that had been building. Why me, Elena? Really, you could have done this without a front man, could have stayed hidden and pulled strings. Why bring me into it? Elena set down her glass, meeting his eyes. Because you deserved it. The answer came without hesitation. Nicole stole your work. Webb stole mine. We both got erased by people who valued winning over ethics. I wanted a partner who understood that, who'd fight because it was right, not just because it was profitable. And Ryan sensed there was more. Elena smiled slightly. And I was lonely. 5 years hiding in this house, plotting revenge, living in the past. You knocked on my door and reminded me what it felt like to build something with someone, to trust again. The admission hung between them, vulnerable and honest. Ryan felt the distance closing, the partnership evolving into something undefined and complicated. Before he could respond, his phone rang. Unknown number. He answered cautiously. Mr. Mitchell? The voice was cultured, familiar from news interviews. Marcus Webb. We should talk before Monday's board meeting. I think we can reach an arrangement beneficial to both parties. Ryan put the call on speaker so Elena could hear. I'm not interested in arrangements with you, Webb. Your merger's dead. Accept it and move on. Webb's laugh was dry. You're operating on incomplete information. I have leverage you haven't considered. Leverage that makes Titan's acquisition impossible unless you negotiate with me. What leverage? Ryan kept his voice neutral. Webb's pause was calculated for maximum effect. I know about the Crawford Protocol theft. I know Elena's been planning revenge for 5 years, and I know this acquisition has nothing to do with business fundamentals. It's personal vendetta. When Velocity Flow's board learns they're being used as pawns in a revenge scheme, they'll reject Titan immediately. Board members don't appreciate being manipulated. You're bluffing. Elena spoke for the first time. You have no evidence of manipulation. Our offer is legitimate, our financing solid. Webb's tone sharpened. I have emails, messages between you and various shell companies over the past 3 years. I've been monitoring your activities since Daniel's accident, Elena. Did you really think I'd let you disappear without surveillance? I know every move you've made preparing for this, and I'll release all of it unless you withdraw the acquisition and sell me your new patents at a price I find acceptable. Ryan looked at Elena, saw her face go pale. The threat was real. Webb had been watching, waiting, documenting. If he released evidence of a long-term revenge plot, the board would question Titan's motives. The acquisition would collapse under ethical scrutiny regardless of financial merits. Ryan made a decision. Your offer's noted. We'll discuss it tomorrow. He ended the call before Webb could respond. Elena was already at her computer pulling up encrypted files. He's been tracking me. The realization seemed to shake her. For 5 years he's been watching everything. Every company I purchased through shells, every patent filing, every financial move. He knew I'd come for him eventually, and he prepared. Ryan moved to the monitors. Can he actually prove the revenge angle? Elena typed furiously, checking security on her communications. If he has my emails to the shell companies, yes. I wasn't always careful about separating personal motivations from business justifications. Some messages explicitly reference getting back at him. The board would see that as evidence we're using Velocity Flow as a weapon rather than an investment. So, we're compromised. Ryan felt the victory slipping away. Elena kept working, eyes scanning lines of code. Not necessarily. Webb's surveillance of me was likely illegal. If he hacked my communications, anything he obtained is inadmissible in court and unethical to release publicly. We can threaten legal action if he tries to use it. But that doesn't help with the board's perception. Even if the evidence is tainted, the implication of revenge-motivated acquisition would poison our credibility. What if we admit it? Ryan spoke slowly, thinking through the strategy. What if we go to the board Monday and acknowledge the personal element? Tell them, yes, this started as revenge, but the business fundamentals are sound. Titan genuinely offers better value than Apex. The personal motivation doesn't invalidate the financial logic. Elena stopped typing, considering. That's risky. Admitting personal animus could alienate fence-sitters. But it's honest. And after tonight, after Nicole's public meltdown, the board already suspects personal dynamics. Trying to hide it might seem more suspicious than owning it. They spent the next hour crafting a new pitch, one that acknowledged the revenge element while emphasizing Titan's superior technology and employee protections. It felt vulnerable, exposing their motivations to scrutiny. But it was also authentic in a way corporate dealings rarely allowed. Ryan drafted talking points. Yes, Nicole Grant and I were married. Yes, she took credit for work I did. But that doesn't change the fact that Velocity Flow needs better technology and leadership. Titan offers both. Personal history provides motivation, not disqualification. By 3 a.m. they had a revised strategy. Transparency about personal stakes. Aggressive emphasis on business value, legal threats. If Webb tried to release illegally obtained communications. It wasn't perfect, but it was defensible. Elena looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes. We should sleep. Tomorrow's going to be brutal. Ryan agreed, but neither moved. The adrenaline was fading, leaving them wired and restless. Elena broke the silence. If this fails, if Webb wins, and the acquisition collapses, what will you do? Keep fighting. Ryan didn't hesitate. Sophie needs to see her father doesn't quit when things get hard. And I'm done letting people like Nicole and Webb win because decent people are too tired to resist. Elena smiled, something warm breaking through her exhaustion. Good answer. They went to their separate rooms, the brownstone settling into pre-dawn quiet. Ryan lay in the expensive bed staring at shadows on the ceiling, mind too active for sleep. He'd come so far from the broken man who knocked on this door 3 weeks ago. But the war wasn't over. Webb was still dangerous. Nicole still had moves available. Monday's board meeting would determine everything. Sunday passed in tense preparation. Nicole never showed for the 10 a.m. meeting, sending her lawyer instead with a settlement proposal. Titan withdraws the acquisition attempt. Nicole withdraws the custody challenge. Both parties signed non-disparagement agreements. Ryan rejected it immediately. He wasn't interested in mutual silence. He wanted accountability. The lawyer left looking nervous, probably reporting back that Ryan Mitchell wasn't the pushover Nicole remembered. Afternoon brought another complication. Tyler called Ryan's phone directly, his voice shaking. I need to talk to you, without Nicole knowing. This is important. Ryan's suspicion flared. Why would I trust you? Tyler's response came fast, desperate. Because Webb's been using me. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know at first. But he set me up to seduce Nicole to create the affair to push her toward the merger. I have proof. Recordings of our conversations. I want out, but I need protection from Webb. He's dangerous. Ryan put Tyler on speaker. Elena listened, her expression skeptical. Why the sudden conscience? Tyler's breathing was audible. Nicole just told me about the custody threat, about using Sophie as leverage. I didn't sign up for hurting kids. I thought this was just corporate strategy. But she's talking about taking your daughter away and Webb's encouraging it, and I can't. I just can't be part of that. The emotion sounded genuine, though Ryan had learned not to trust appearances. Where are you? Elena spoke sharply. Tyler gave an address in Wicker Park. Elena checked it against databases, confirming it wasn't an obvious trap. We'll meet you. 1 hour. Come alone. If this is a setup, Tyler, you'll regret it more than you can imagine. They disconnected. Elena was already pulling up security protocols. This could be legitimate. Webb recruiting Tyler as a plant makes sense. He'd want someone inside Nicole's operation to ensure the merger went smoothly, but it could also be Webb using Tyler as bait to get us vulnerable. They went heavily prepared. Elena brought a driver, a former military contractor she trusted. They wore discreet body cameras. The meeting location was a coffee shop in Wicker Park, public enough to discourage violence, private enough for serious conversation. Tyler sat in the back corner looking genuinely terrified. He was younger than Ryan had realized at the gala, maybe 27, with the kind of conventional handsomeness that came from good genetics and expensive grooming. Now he looked haggard, beard growth shadowing his jaw, eyes bloodshot. Ryan and Elena sat across from him. Tyler immediately pulled out a phone, set it on the table. Everything's on here. Recordings of Webb explaining the plan. How I was supposed to get close to Nicole, encourage her worst instincts, make her dependent on me emotionally so I could steer her toward apex. I have texts showing he knew about Nicole's accounting irregularities and told her to keep hiding them until after the merger closed. He planned to use that as blackmail once she was trapped inside Apex. Why did you go along with it? Ryan couldn't keep the contempt from his voice. Tyler's hands shook. Webb paid me $200,000 upfront, promised another $300 after the merger. I'm 26, drowning in student loans trying to break into executive track. He made it sound like standard corporate espionage. By the time I realized how personal it was, how much he genuinely wanted to destroy you both, I was in too deep. The rationalization sounded pathetic, but probably true. Elena took the phone, started reviewing files. This is substantial. If authentic, it proves Webb engaged in fraud and manipulation. It also proves Nicole knew about the accounting issues and deliberately hid them from her board. This destroys both of them. Tyler nodded miserably. I know. That's why I'll testify to whatever you need. Give depositions, wear a wire, anything. I just want protection from Webb. He's already called me twice today asking why I didn't report back after the gala. I think he suspects I'm wavering. What do you want in return? Ryan watched Tyler carefully. Immunity from prosecution. A recommendation letter so I can find work somewhere outside this industry. Maybe witness protection if Webb gets really vindictive. It wasn't unreasonable. Elena and Ryan exchanged glances, communicating silently. Tyler's defection could end this war decisively, but trusting him required faith. They were both short on. We'll need to verify everything on this phone. Elena pocketed the device. You'll come back to our location, stay in a secure room while we authenticate. If it checks out, we'll discuss terms. Tyler agreed immediately, relief visible. They transported him to the brownstone, setting him up in a guest room with security monitoring. Elena's technical team started analyzing the recordings while lawyers reviewed for legal sufficiency. Ryan watched through monitors as Tyler paced his room, alternating between anxious and resigned. If he's acting, he's committed to it. Elena stood beside him. Or he's genuinely scared. Webb has a reputation for eliminating problems. Tyler probably realizes he's become a loose end. By evening, the verification came back. Authentic. Tyler's recordings were damning. Webb explicitly discussing how to manipulate Nicole, mentioning Daniel's accident in ways that implied knowledge of the brake line sabotage, outlining plans to absorb velocity flow, then immediately fire Nicole once she'd served her purpose. There was enough evidence to bring criminal charges, certainly enough to destroy Webb's credibility. The merger was dead. Nicole's board would abandon her. Webb would face investigations. But using the recordings meant bringing Tyler into their operation, trusting him with sensitive information about Titan's strategy. Ryan wrestled with the decision. Tyler had hurt Nicole, manipulated her into betraying her marriage and her company. He'd been complicit in Webb's schemes, even if he claimed ignorance. Forgiving that required mercy Ryan wasn't sure he possessed. Elena read his hesitation. Tyler's a tool, not a mastermind. Webb used him the same way he used everyone. We can hate Tyler for being weak, or we can use his weakness against Webb. Pragmatism over revenge. Ryan made the call. Tyler gets immunity and protection. In exchange, he testifies about everything. Webb, Nicole, the merger, all of it. Tyler's visible relief when they told him was almost pitiable. Thank you. I know I don't deserve this. You're right. Ryan's tone was harsh. You don't. But you're getting it anyway because you're useful. Don't mistake pragmatism for forgiveness. Tyler nodded, accepting the terms. Monday morning arrived with gray skies and razor wind. The board meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. at Velocity Flow's headquarters. Ryan dressed carefully, the charcoal suit feeling like battle armor. Elena wore a sharp black pantsuit, her expression focused and hard. They'd prepared all night, running scenarios, anticipating counter-arguments. Tyler's evidence was their nuclear option, to be deployed only if Webb tried to destroy Titan's credibility. Better to win clean if possible. The boardroom was oak and leather windows overlooking lower Chicago. Nicole sat at one end, her lawyer beside her, Tyler's empty chair conspicuous by its absence. Webb sat opposite, flanked by two apex executives. The board members filled the remaining seats, 8 men and women who controlled Velocity Flow's future. Robert Chandler called the meeting to order. We're here to discuss Titan Ventures' acquisition proposal and address concerns raised about the motivations behind it. Webb wasted no time. Before we proceed, the board should know that Titan's offer is fraudulent. Elena Crawford and Ryan Mitchell aren't legitimate business partners. They're revenge seekers using this company as a weapon against me personally. I have evidence of a 5-year conspiracy. He started distributing folders. Inside, you'll find documentation of communications proving Crawford has been planning to destroy Apex since her husband's death. This isn't business. It's vendetta. Ryan felt Elena tense beside him. This was the moment. They could deny, could attack Webb's illegal surveillance, could try to deflect. Or they could do what they'd planned. Own it. Ryan stood addressing the board directly. Mr. Webb is partially correct. This did start as personal. Elena and I both have history with the people in this room. History that includes theft, betrayal, and fraud. But personal motivation doesn't invalidate business fundamentals. Let me explain. He laid out Titan's technology advantage, the superior patents the employee protection guarantees. Then he addressed the personal element head-on. Yes, Nicole and I were married. Yes, she took credit for logistics systems I designed. That creates bias. But it also means I understand Velocity Flow's infrastructure better than any outside buyer. I know where the weaknesses are because I built the foundations. My personal stake makes me more committed to this company's success, not less. Elena took over, her voice cutting. Webb mentions my husband's death. What he doesn't mention is that investigation found evidence of sabotage. Brake lines don't cut themselves. I've spent 5 years seeking justice for Daniel while Webb spent 5 years profiting from stolen technology. So yes, this is personal. But it's also right. Webb is offering to gut this company for parts. We're offering to restore it to what it should have been from the beginning. The board members exchanged glances. Webb stood, his composure cracking. You're admitting to fraud, to using this company as a tool for revenge. How can you possibly expect? Ryan cut him off. We're admitting to having personal stakes. That's different from fraud. Titan's financing is legitimate. Our technology is superior. Our offer protects employees. Those facts remain true regardless of our motivations. What's your counteroffer, Webb? How do you justify laying off 1/3 of the workforce and liquidating the pension fund? Webb's jaw clenched. Business requires difficult decisions. Sentiment can't factor into profitability. The response was bloodless and calculated. Several board members visibly recoiled. Ryan pressed the advantage. That's the difference between Titan and Apex. We see employees as assets worth protecting. Webb sees them as expenses to eliminate. Which vision do you want leading this company? Nicole finally spoke, her voice strained. The board should also know that Ryan is using our daughter to pressure me. He's threatened custody to force my cooperation. The accusation was desperate, easily disproved. Ryan remained calm. Nicole filed the custody challenge. Not me. I have documentation proving she threatened to revoke my parental rights if I didn't withdraw the acquisition. She's the one weaponizing Sophie. Not Titan. Elena added a final blow. We also have evidence that Ms. Grant has been cooking the books to impress Apex. Revenue recognition irregularities, deferred expense games, the kinds of accounting tricks that make quarterly numbers look better than reality. Webb knew about this and encouraged it because he planned to use that knowledge as blackmail after the merger. We have recordings. The boardroom went silent. Nicole's face drained of color. Webb's composure finally shattered. Those recordings are fabricated, illegal. You can't. They're authentic and admissible. Elena cut him off. Verified by independent forensic analysis. And they prove both of you engaged in fraud. The board can accept Titan's offer, or they can wait for the SEC investigation to destroy what's left of this company's value. Your choice. Chandler called for a recess. The board members filed out to deliberate privately. Ryan, Elena, Nicole, and Webb remained in the boardroom, separated by hostile silence. Nicole stared at the table, tears tracking silently down her face. Tyler's betrayal had broken something fundamental in her. Webb watched Elena with undisguised hatred. You think you've won? This isn't over. Elena met his glare steadily. Yes, it is. You just haven't accepted it yet. The board returned after 40 minutes. Chandler's expression was grave. "We've voted to accept Titan Ventures' acquisition offer pending standard due diligence. Miss Grant, you're removed as CEO effective immediately." Mr. Webb, "Apex's merger proposal is rejected. We'll be forwarding evidence of accounting irregularities to appropriate authorities. This meeting is adjourned." Nicole stood on shaking legs, her lawyer supporting her elbow. She looked at Ryan one last time, something broken and pleading in her eyes. He felt nothing. No triumph, no satisfaction, just weary acknowledgement that justice had been served. Webb left without a word, already on his phone, probably calling his own lawyers. The war wasn't completely over. There would be investigations, lawsuits, years of legal aftermath. But the major battle was won. Ryan and Elena walked out of Velocity Flow headquarters into cold morning air. Elena's phone started ringing immediately, journalists wanting comments, lawyers needing instructions. Ryan's phone showed a message from Sophie's school, parent-teacher conference reminder, the mundane detail of normal life asserting itself. He'd won the company back. Now he had to figure out how to be a father and a CEO simultaneously. They drove back to the brownstone in silence, exhaustion settling over both of them. Elena finally spoke as they pulled into the garage. "What happens now?" Ryan considered. "We rebuild. Make Velocity Flow into what it should have been. Protect the people Nicole was willing to sacrifice. Give Sophie a father she can be proud of." Elena nodded slowly. "And us? What happens with us?" Ryan met her eyes, seeing the question behind the question. 3 weeks living in close quarters, building trust, creating something that felt like more than partnership. "I don't know." The honest answer felt necessary. "I'm not ready to think about us yet. Not until Sophie's settled, the company's stable, the legal aftermath is handled. But Elena, you saved me, gave me back my life. Whatever happens, I won't forget that." Elena smiled, tired but genuine. "I'll take uncertain future over certain revenge." "We did good work together, Ryan. Let's see where it leads." They went inside the brownstone, welcoming them back. Ryan headed for the shower, letting hot water wash away the tension of the morning. He thought about calling Sophie, telling her something exciting had happened at work. Decided to wait until he could frame it properly. She was 8. She didn't need to know about corporate warfare. She just needed to know her father was building something good. Ryan was toweling off when his phone rang. Unknown number again. He answered warily. "Mr. Mitchell?" A woman's voice, professional and measured. "This is Patricia Foster, your divorce attorney. I'm calling because Nicole Grant just filed for bankruptcy protection. Velocity Flow's board has voted to sell company assets. Titan Ventures is the only qualified bidder." Ryan's hand tightened on the phone. "What does that mean?" Foster's tone carried grim satisfaction. "It means you're about to own Velocity Flow. Everything you built that she took credit for. Everything she threw away. It's yours now. Congratulations, Mr. Mitchell. You just became CEO of a $400 million company. For real this time." Ryan ended the call, stood in the guest bathroom of a brownstone that had become home, wrapped in a towel, staring at his reflection. The man in the mirror looked different from the one who'd arrived in a rainstorm 3 weeks ago. Stronger, harder, changed in ways that couldn't be undone. He'd fought and won, reclaimed what was stolen, proved Nicole wrong about everything. But the victory felt hollow, incomplete, because winning meant Sophie would see her mother destroyed, because the war had cost pieces of his soul he couldn't get back. Elena knocked on the door. "You okay? I heard you on the phone." Ryan pulled on clothes, opened the door. "Velocity Flow's ours. Nicole filed bankruptcy. The board's selling everything to Titan." Elena's expression shifted through surprise to understanding. "You won." Ryan shook his head. "We won. This was never just about me." They stood in the hallway, the weight of what they'd accomplished settling around them. 3 weeks from desperate to victorious. 3 weeks from nothing to everything. 3 weeks that had rewritten both their lives. Downstairs, the monitors still displayed financial data. Velocity Flow's final stock price frozen at bankruptcy levels. News alerts about Nicole Grant's fall scrolling past. Analyst predictions about Titan Ventures' future. Ryan poured coffee black and strong, the routine grounding him. Elena joined him in the library. We should call the lawyers, start transfer paperwork, plan for employee retention. There's so much work ahead. Ryan nodded but didn't move. Elena studied his face. You're not celebrating. Ryan met her eyes. Sophie lost her mother's stability today. Hundreds of employees don't know if their jobs are safe. Nicole's facing criminal charges. Webb's planning revenge. This isn't over, Elena. We won a battle, but the war's going to stretch for years. Are you ready for that? Elena's answer came without hesitation. I've been ready for 5 years. The question is whether you're ready to see it through. Because once we take ownership of Velocity Flow, once we become the targets instead of the challengers, everything gets harder. Ryan thought about his daughter, about the future he was building for her, about showing Sophie that you fight for what's right even when it's hard, about teaching her that being knocked down isn't the same as being defeated. I'm ready. Let's finish what we started. Elena smiled, fierce and determined. Then let's get to work. They had a company to rebuild, employees to protect, enemies to defend against. The real work was just beginning. But for the first time in 10 years, Ryan felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be, fighting the right battle, with the right partner, for the right reasons. Whatever came next, he'd face it standing up. The acquisition ceremony took place in the same boardroom where Ryan had fought for control 2 weeks earlier. Lawyers lined the walls, documents stacked in neat piles awaiting signatures. Nicole wasn't present, contractually barred from the proceedings. Her absence felt appropriate. This was about what came after her, not what she'd destroyed. Ryan sat at the head of the table, Elena beside him, signing page after page, transferring Velocity Flow's assets to Titan Ventures. The board members watched with expressions ranging from relief to cautious optimism. They'd chosen survival over loyalty, pragmatism over sentiment. Chandler made it official. Titan Ventures acquires all Velocity Flow assets for $380 million. All employee contracts are honored. No layoffs for 18 months minimum. Stock options vest at pre-crash values. Ryan Mitchell assumed CEO role immediately. The applause was muted but genuine. Ryan stood addressing the room. Velocity Flow ends today. Tomorrow we become Titan Logistics. We rise from what was burned down. We build something better. His first executive decision was symbolic and strategic. Elena Crawford, promoted to Chief Technology Officer, overseeing integration of her patents into their existing systems. The announcement sent ripples through the logistics industry. Crawford's return, combined with her revolutionary protocols, meant Titan wasn't just surviving, it was poised to dominate. Stock analysts scrambled to project valuations. Early estimates put Titan at over $1 billion within 2 years. The months that followed blurred into relentless work. Ryan spent mornings in the Gary warehouse wearing coveralls alongside the mechanics fixing the brake systems Nicole had neglected. He remembered being the factory worker nobody noticed, understood the dignity of manual labor. The technicians appreciated a CEO who could rebuild an engine, who spoke their language without condescension. Word spread through the company. New boss is different, actually cares about the people doing the work. Afternoons were boardrooms and investor calls, Ryan learning to navigate corporate politics with Elena's coaching. She was patient when he stumbled over financial jargon, fierce when he needed backup against hostile questions. They developed rhythms, finishing each other's sentences in presentations, anticipating objections before they surfaced. Observers started calling them the Titan Partnership, unable to determine where one's influence ended and the other's began. Sophie visited the office on Saturdays, her presence brightening the sterile corporate environment. She'd set up in an empty conference room doing homework while Ryan worked nearby. The employees loved her, bringing cookies and asking about school. Elena taught Sophie basic coding during lunch breaks, the two of them bonding over logic puzzles and algorithm challenges. Ryan watched his daughter laugh at Elena's terrible programming jokes and felt something shift in his chest. This was what family could look like. Not perfect, not traditional, but whole. The custody situation resolved itself quietly. Nicole's bankruptcy and looming criminal charges weakened her legal position considerably. Her lawyers negotiated a settlement. Ryan got primary custody. Nicole received supervised visitation rights pending completion of court-mandated therapy. Sophie handled the transition better than Ryan expected. She loved her mother but recognized the instability. Having a consistent home with Ryan and regular visits to Elena's brownstone provided the security she'd been missing. 3 months after the acquisition, news broke about Apex Industries' collapse. The SEC investigation triggered by Tyler's recordings uncovered systematic fraud. Webb had been cooking books company-wide, not just encouraging Nicole's deceptions. Shareholders sued. The board forced Webb out. Criminal charges followed. Wire fraud, securities manipulation, conspiracy. Webb's empire crumbled faster than he'd built it. Titan acquired Apex's remaining logistics assets at liquidation prices, absorbing the useful technology and personnel while discarding the corrupt infrastructure. Ryan felt no satisfaction watching Webb's perp walk on the news, just exhaustion at how much damage one man's greed had caused. Elena was equally subdued. This isn't victory, it's cleanup. She shut off the monitor displaying Webb's mugshot. We won, but look what it cost. Hundreds of Apex employees out of work. Investors lost fortunes. Nicole's facing prison. Daniel's still dead. Ryan understood. Justice wasn't the same as healing. Winning wasn't the same as being whole. 1 year after the divorce, the tech gala returned. Titan Logistics was now valued at $1.2 billion. Ryan and Elena featured on magazine covers as the year's most successful partnership. Forbes ran a profile titled, "From Ashes, the Titan Success Story." The article detailed Ryan's journey from factory worker to billionaire CEO, Elena's resurrection from reclusive widow to industry leader. It soft-pedaled the revenge elements focused on innovation and employee-first policies. The narrative was cleaner than reality, but essentially true. Ryan wore the same charcoal suit from last year's gala, now comfortable as a second skin. Elena's midnight blue gown was new, custom designed with a neckline that managed to be elegant and devastating simultaneously. They arrived in Elena's Mercedes, photographers snapping as they stepped onto the red carpet. "Mr. Mitchell, how does it feel to be back after last year's dramatic entrance?" Ryan smiled for the cameras. Last year was about confronting the past. This year's about building the future. Inside, the ballroom glittered with the same expensive excess, but Ryan navigated it differently now, comfortable rather than performing. Board members approached with genuine respect. Investors pitched partnerships. Journalists requested interviews. Elena handled the attention with practiced ease, deflecting intrusive questions while maintaining charm. They moved through the room as a unit, two people who'd learned to trust absolutely. Nicole appeared near the bar, alone. Ryan almost didn't recognize her. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by a simple black dress from a department store. Her hair was shorter, styled plainly. No jewelry except small earrings. She looked smaller, humbled by consequences. Their eyes met across the crowd. Nicole's expression cycled through fear, shame, resignation. Ryan felt Elena tense beside him. "We can leave. Go somewhere else." But Ryan shook his head. "No, I need to do this." He approached slowly, giving Nicole time to flee if she chose. She didn't, just stood there, gripping her glass like a lifeline. "Ryan." Her voice was barely audible over the ambient noise. "I wasn't sure you'd talk to me." Ryan studied her, looking for the woman he'd loved, finding only ruins. "What are you doing here, Nicole?" She laughed bitterly. "Probation lets me attend industry events. My lawyer thought showing my face might help with sentencing, prove I'm trying to rebuild my reputation. How's that working?" The question came without malice, genuine curiosity. Nicole's smile was fragile. "Everyone avoids me like I'm contagious, which I guess I am. Corporate fraud tends to make people nervous." She met his eyes. "I know you hate me. I deserve that. But I wanted to say I'm sorry For everything. The piano, the credit stealing using Sophie. All of it. I was so focused on winning I forgot what winning was supposed to be for. Ryan felt Elena join them, her presence solid and supportive. Nicole acknowledged her with a small nod. Ms. Crawford, you were right about everything. About Webb, about me, about what I was destroying. Elena's expression was unreadable. Being right doesn't feel as good as I expected. Nicole, are you getting help? Nicole nodded quickly. Court-ordered therapy 3 times a week. And I'm teaching business ethics at a nonprofit, helping women rebuild after incarceration. The irony isn't lost on me. Sophie asked about you last week. Ryan's words surprised himself. Said she missed her mom. Nicole's eyes filled instantly. She did. Ryan continued. She's 9 now. Smart, funny, plays Gershwin like she was born to it. She needs her mother in her life. Not the CEO who put work first. The actual mother who remembers she has a daughter. Nicole was crying now, tears tracking mascara. I want that. I want to be that. I just don't know if I can. Elena spoke, her voice gentle but firm. You start by showing up, consistently. Not when it's convenient. Not when you feel guilty, but regularly. You rebuild trust, brick by brick. Ryan and I will support supervised visits if you commit to therapy and prove you're stable. Sophie deserves a mother who's present. Can you be that? Nicole wiped her eyes, straightened her spine. Yes, I can be that. I will be that. They talked for another 10 minutes, establishing boundaries, discussing logistics. Nicole would start with weekly supervised visits, working toward unsupervised time as she demonstrated reliability. Ryan felt something release in his chest. Not forgiveness exactly, but the beginning of letting go. Nicole would never be his partner again, but she could be Sophie's mother. That was enough. Tyler appeared as they were finishing, looking nervous. He'd stayed in Chicago working at the same nonprofit as Nicole, both of them trying to rebuild from shared wreckage. I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to say the testimony helped. Webb got 18 years. Tyler's courage had been expensive. He'd received death threats, lost friends, spent months in protective custody. But he'd done the right thing when it counted. Thank you. Ryan extended his hand. Tyler took it, relief visible. For what it's worth, Sophie's lucky to have you as a father. I see what Nicole threw away now. Ryan withdrew his hand. Sophie's lucky to have people around her who are trying to be better. That includes you and Nicole if you keep working at it. They parted amicably, not quite friends, but no longer enemies. Elena watched them go. You're more forgiving than I am. Ryan turned to her. I'm not forgiving. I'm just tired of carrying anger. It's heavy, Elena. And I want to travel light. She smiled, understanding in her eyes. Then maybe it's time to put some other weights down, too. She pulled a small box from her clutch, opened it to reveal a platinum band with a modest diamond. I had this designed 3 months ago. Been waiting for the right moment. Ryan Mitchell, will you marry me? The proposal shocked him silent. Elena rushed to fill the gap. I know it's fast. I know we said we'd wait until everything's settled. But Ryan, life doesn't settle. It just keeps moving. And I don't want to waste time being cautious when I could be building something real with you. We've been partners in war. I want to be partners in peace. Ryan looked at the ring, at Elena's hopeful, nervous expression, at the ballroom full of people who'd watched him fall and rise. He thought about Sophie asking when he and Elena were getting married, about the brownstone that had become home, about partnership built on trust and tested by fire. Yes. The word came out certain. Yes, I'll marry you. But I'm buying you a ring too. This partnership goes both ways. They married in June, small ceremony at the brownstone with Sophie as flower girl and Tyler playing piano. Nicole attended, sitting in the back, crying quiet tears that might have been grief or joy or both. The reception was family and close friends, nothing like the corporate circus of the gala. Just people who mattered celebrating something genuine. Sophie gave a toast that made everyone laugh and cry. My dad says you can fall down and get back up. He did that. Elena did that. And now they're getting up together. I think that's pretty cool. 2 years after the divorce, Titan Logistics went public at $8.4 billion valuation. Ryan and Elena rang the opening bell at NASDAQ. Sophie between them, all three wearing matching Titan pins. The company employed over 1,200 people, expanded to 15 states, pioneered new distribution technologies that became industry standard. Universities taught the Crawford Protocol in logistics courses worldwide. Ryan's original napkin sketches were displayed in the Smithsonian's Innovation Exhibit. The old Apex headquarters became the Titan Rising Institute Training Center for second-chance entrepreneurs. People rebuilding after bankruptcy, divorce, incarceration. Nicole taught there full-time, her insider knowledge of failure making her an effective instructor. She'd published a memoir about hubris and humility, donating proceeds to employee assistance programs. The book became required reading in business ethics courses. Sunday dinners at the Brownstone became tradition. Ryan, Elena, Sophie, Nicole, Tyler. An unconventional family built from wreckage and forgiveness. Sophie thrived with the expanded support system, excelling in school, performing Gershwin at Orchestra Hall to standing ovations. Ryan watched from the front row, Elena's hand in his, feeling complete in ways he'd never imagined possible during those dark November days. The piano had been the final piece. Elena had tracked it down in a Goodwill warehouse in Indiana, purchased it anonymously, had it restored and delivered to the Brownstone. Sophie had cried when she saw it, understanding the significance. Ryan had cried too, his mother's gift reclaimed, passed forward to his daughter. The piano sat in the Brownstone's music room, now Sophie's practice sessions filling the house with sound and life. Ryan stood in his office at Titan headquarters one morning, looking at the city through floor-to-ceiling windows. On his desk sat the framed napkin with his original logistics sketch, the MIT diploma he'd finally completed online, a photo of Sophie at her piano recital. His phone buzzed with a message from Elena. "Board meeting in 10. Don't be late, Mr. CEO." He smiled, grabbed his jacket, headed for the elevator. In the end, Ryan realized rock bottom hadn't been a foundation. It had been a clearing. A space burned clean of everything false, everything built on compromises and borrowed dreams. From that clearing he'd grown something true, not the life he'd planned with Nicole with its assumptions of partnership that proved hollow, something better, something earned through pain and choice and the courage to believe he deserved more than scraps from someone else's table. The divorce had taken everything he thought defined him. The rebuilding had revealed who he actually was, an engineer who solved problems, a father who showed up, a partner who valued equals, a man who'd learned that being knocked down wasn't the same as being broken. Nicole had tried to erase him. Webb had tried to destroy him. They'd both failed because they'd underestimated the simple power of refusing to stay defeated. Sophie called that evening, excited about a science project. Her voice carried joy and security, the sound of a child who knew she was loved. Ryan listened to her chatter about volcanoes and chemical reactions, contributing enthusiastic questions. After they hung up, he sat with Elena on the Brownstone's back terrace, watching stars appear over Chicago. "You did good work today," she leaned against his shoulder. "So did you." They sat in comfortable silence, two people who'd found each other in a storm and built something that withstood everything thrown against it. Sometimes the wrong door is exactly where you're meant to be. Ryan thought about that November night, the rain, the desperate knock, Elena's smile when she'd opened the door. Everything that came after flowed from that moment. The partnership, the war, the victory, the family. None of it planned. All of it necessary. You can't rebuild on old foundations. You have to clear the ground, start fresh, build something designed for who you are now rather than who you used to be. The phoenix didn't just rise from ashes. It was reborn, better, stronger, transformed by fire into something that couldn't have existed before the burning. Ryan understood that now. Nicole had done him a favor by destroying their marriage. She'd freed him to become someone worthy of partnership with someone like Elena. She'd cleared space for Sophie to have a father who was present rather than slowly disappearing into someone else's shadow. The divorce had been devastation and gift simultaneously. Ryan Mitchell had walked out of that lawyer's office with nothing. 2 years later, he had everything that mattered. A daughter who trusted him, a wife who challenged him, a company that reflected his values, a family built from honesty rather than obligation, and the quiet certainty that he'd never again mistake someone else's vision for his own worth. That was the real victory, not the billion-dollar valuation or the magazine covers or Nicole's downfall, just the simple permanent knowledge that he was enough exactly as he was.